Welcome to Previously on X-Men, the podcast that looks at X-Men comics, movies, shows, characters, and more. I'm Hilary, and I've got Nick with me today.
Hey there.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks.
Excellent introductions.
Excellent.
Oh, what?
Stupid.
You're stupid. Anyway, today we are talking about X-23 Innocence Lost by Craig Kyle and Christopher Yost. The art was by Billy Tan.
I read that.
That's good because because that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, I did the assignment.
It's better to have read it.
I agree.
This is a 6-issue miniseries from 2005, and it is written by the creators of X-23.
That's right. You know, until we started doing this, I did not realize the true origin of this character, and I was a little surprised by that.
Yeah, it's interesting. She's very kind of integrated into the comics now.
Yeah.
But X-23 was actually created by Kyle and Yost for the third season of X-Men Evolution.
Okay.
The animated series from what, like 2000 something?
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, early 2000s.
Yeah, like Kids WB era.
Yeah, I love that show.
Yeah, it was good.
It
was really
to me.
good. And actually, they Kyle and Yost, they wrote several graphic novels based on X-Men Evolution, which I also read back in the day, and I loved them. Mm-hmm. They were really good.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I didn't realize while I was reading it, but that it was written by them, and it didn't super feel like outsiders, I guess.
Yeah.
Like non-regular comic people.
Yeah, I agree. And like, spoiler alert, I guess, but I feel like this is one of the better origins that I've read. You know, like this is a character who had existed in other media and then also had already appeared in comics. And this is like, all right, let's sit down and really tell this character's origin. And I thought it was really effective in that way.
Yeah, it was very well contained and clear for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, motivations, why she is the way she is, like how things came to be for her to be made, because it's kind of a convoluted thing.
It is. It's not the most original story. We'll get into what the plot is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it works. It clearly delineates exactly what's going on and how you end up with a Wolverine clone who's a teenage girl.
Yeah.
Which, knowing that she was created for a WB show, makes a lot more sense now. That they were like, we want Wolverine, but a teenage girl. How do we get there?
But it still kind of blows my mind because X-Men Evolution, obviously its whole thing was like, let's kind of take these characters down to a more base level. Let's make it have more broad of appeal to a younger crowd and everything. So like, then you take X-23, who, like, you know, what I've known of her, I think, like, violent, bloody character. And, of course, like, the big screen version of her in Logan only goes to reinforce that. So, again, very odd that we're coming from a show like that.
Yeah. Very interesting. So what do you know about, like, the history of X-23 after she was created?
So in brief, she showed up in X-Men Evolution, and then she made her way to the comic books in this series called NYX, which originally was going to be like a Marvel Max imprint, you know, like Jessica Jones, like Alias, you know, all that stuff was the Marvel Max. And it didn't go in that direction, but there was a couple of these miniseries called NYX. It was basically about sort of like young, sometimes homeless mutants in New York City. So a very different kind of thing, which makes sense when you're looking at it from like a Marvel Max standpoint.
Yeah.
But X-23 shows up in that and is portrayed as like an underage prostitute, which is very bizarre, again, when it's like X-Men Evolution to that. Yeah,
I think that there might be something that kind of gets loosed in comic book writers when they have something like this is going to be a darker imprint. And so then they just kind of go where their minds take them.
That's dark.
And I think it might be a little telling.
Maybe.
about these guys.
Well, so this miniseries came out to sort of be like, all right, let's just say exactly who this character is. There was another miniseries that came after that called The Target, I believe. She's headlined a couple of series just called X-23, one written by Marjorie Liu, who's great. I mean, I love her stuff. I haven't read that series. I've
started that. I've read several issues in that. The guys from NYX, I'm pretty sure, show up.
Oh, feature in that?
Oh,
okay.
I wouldn't say feature, but they show up and like...
Okay.
When she's kind of looking around in her past and stuff.
There's a later one by Marco Tamaki. X-23 does a long run in Avengers Academy, things like that. Sometimes she's codenamed Talon. The first time I read anything with this character was when she takes over as Wolverine in Tom Taylor's all-new Wolverine. had no idea like what it was or like who the character was, and I just like picked it up, and it's mostly her and Gambit, which is kind of cool. Like, it's kind of unusual. I always like the Gambit Wolverine pairings when those happen, so it's kind of neat to have Gambit.
She's sort of, I think there's something about a teenage girl that the X-Men kind of leans into storylines where a teenage girl is either with Logan or Gambit.
Yeah.
And they get to like show her the ropes or protect her or whatever.
Yeah.
They seem to enjoy those pairings.
Well, I liked All New Wolverine. I was like, I don't know why we got here or who this really is, and I don't understand where we're going, but let's do it, and I enjoyed that run. I recently read one of the Infinity comics called The Snikt Family, and it was kind of a goofy road trip story with Wolverine and like the Wolverine's son and Laura and her like cloned sister Gabby, plus an actual real life Wolverine, and it was funny. I liked it.
Like an animal Wolverine?
An animal Wolverine named Jonathan.
Oh my god!
So I think you'd have a good time with it. It's obviously not serious, and it's not like, oh, you have to read it, but it was a fun showing of all those characters.
Is that like an Infinity comic?
Yeah, okay. It is like brand new. At a time of recording, it's very current, but I had a good time with that. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. She also appeared in Wolverine and the X-Men, which I love that show. I still lament it's one season and done.
That's good stuff.
She does little cameos in Superhero Squad and Hulk vs. Wolverine.
I love that she's in Superhero Squad. That's a kid's show.
Well, I think it's just sort of like different versions of Wolverine, and it's just like a boom, X-23.
Right.
I don't think there's like a whole thing. But yeah, it's odd to think of her in that way.
Wolverine, but darker.
Right. And of course, portrayed by Daphne Keane in Logan. And
she is so freaking adorable in Logan.
She is.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And they got pretty far. I mean, it was like newsworthy as far as they got with doing a spin-off movie called Laura, like on that character. Like,
oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, and you get little glimpses of her in New Mutants. There's some like flashback scenes and everything.
They were sort of going into the like that facility that she was in.
Yeah. And I think, eventually they were planning Sinister to show up and everything. There was, there's all sorts of plans before the Disney merger. So we never got to see that Laura movie, which would have been interesting, I would have liked to have seen it.
I don't know if I can picture that, but I like the concept.
She's been kind of a mainstay since she was created, showing up in, when the X-Men sort of split off and Jean Grey had that X-Men Red. She's a big part of that. And yeah, she's become a pretty legit character.
Yeah, cool.
So there you go. Capsule history of
X-23.
Of X-23.
Yeah. X-23 I have sort of a similar connection to as Nature Girl, where it was like it made me think it when you were saying that like you read the one where she was Wolverine and you were like, what's happening?
Yeah.
Because it's the same kind of thing. Like she just started showing up in other things that I was reading, and I was like, I guess this is a person.
Yeah.
And now,
Now it makes sense.
Gotten into it a little more.
Now it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
So anyway, as I said, we are talking specifically about Innocence Lost,
yes.
that 6-issue run, and it's an origin written by the creators, and I think it gets a little more detailed than they were able to get in X-Men Evolution.
Does it gel well with what they're doing in X-Men Evolution? Like, does it feel like that's the same? I mean, I'm sure.
Yeah,
oh,
I think
really?
broadly it does. I mean, in the show, the geneticist is a woman. She comes to the X-Men. It's like, help find this person. And it was like a facility that she was creating a weapon. It was Hydra in the in the show.
Oh.
Doctor has a different name in the show. She's Deborah Rissman in the X-Men Evolution show. I don't know why it's different, but it is. And yeah, I don't think that it gets into all of the like impregnation,
deeply, darkly,
and all of that. But that's in the show. So in the comic, we start out. It's a narration basically for the whole run.
Yeah.
Narration we find out from Sarah Kinney, who is the geneticist who created X-23. Then we see Dale Rice way back in the original Weapon X days.
Yeah, we get a little bit of Wolverine.
He's tearing things apart at Weapon X. He's escaping.
He's the best at what he does.
He is. And what he does isn't super nice.
Right.
So Dale Rice has apparently been working at Weapon X. He's taking genetic material from Wolverine and is running out, getting away before Wolverine can kill him.
Well,
then Wolverine kills him,
sure,
and he falls dramatically to the ground. But then we see Dr. Martin Sutter, who looks weirdly like Xavier.
Yeah, he does.
We can get
he's got
into
a little facial hair and stuff.
He's got a goatee, so
Yes.
he's Xavier with a goatee.
Right.
And
He's
he comes
mirror
up
Xavier.
and takes the stuff from Dale Rice and is like, I will use this, my friend, whatever. So then time passes, and we find out that Martin Sutter, who has the genetic material now,
Yes.
has started a company that employs Dale Rice's son, Xander
That's
Rice.
right, who is like his protege.
He's
now.
like his protege.
And we learned pretty soon that Xander's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder about the old Weapon X program.
Yes. But what the company is doing now is using that genetic material to try to create a weapon.
Yes.
That's it.
Yep.
It's not a government thing. It's like a private
Right.
organization. So it's like even more sketch than
Yes.
the original Weapon X.
In Logan, they call it Transigen, but that's not here in the comics. They never say that.
I don't think they ever say the name. I think it's just a mysterious organization.
Yes.
It's a mysterious organization where there's like weirdly rampant sexism and like general misogyny.
Yes, there is.
Doesn't seem to be a theme really, but it's very noticeable.
It is, yeah.
Lots of people having sex with secretaries.
Yes.
So anyway, Martin brings in Dr. Kinney because she is this expert,
She's a geneticist.
experimental geneticist. And he thinks that she can work miracles with this stuff because they haven't been able to make anything work.
That's right. They've tried 22.
They've tried
They've had
22 times and they
X-22s.
couldn't quite.
Yeah.
But I guess Xander's been working on it, and so he's kind of pissed that he's bringing in a woman.
A ringer, yeah.
What?
That's right. That's right. He is, isn't he? Yeah.
We have brought in Dr. Sarah Kinney to create the weapon
Yes.
that Xander couldn't do.
Right.
So she's trying and trying, can't do it. Martin is getting super disappointed. Like, you're supposed to be a miracle worker and you're not doing it. So she says that she can almost do it, but the Y chromosome in the genetic material is too damaged and she can't seem to fix it. And so she thinks what I could do is just forget the Y chromosome and duplicate the X chromosome.
Yes.
So it would be a
But
two.
wouldn't that make a
Well, doesn't an XX chromosome, doesn't that mean female?
Oh no.
What?
Oh no.
So she's thinking this would be easy
Right.
because we've
It's
got
done.
the X
You got it.
chromosome.
Yeah. It's
We have
like,
another
you do
X
it.
chromosome.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah.
And they are very, I mean, again, I guess the misogyny, they're
Yeah.
weirdly against this.
They are.
They're like, we're
They
not going to
are.
make some princess. And would rather have nothing, apparently.
I guess.
So finally, she's like, this is stupid. And she just does it.
Right.
She does, and you have sort of a sequence of her doing pretend work that she knows won't yield anything.
Do anything, sure.
And then her real work on the side, where she figures it out, she gets it to work, she has a viable fetus or something
Yes.
for X-23. So now we get into another weird moment.
Yes.
Because the entire time, Xander has been very antagonistic and seems to be sort of secretly undermining Martin, who's in charge.
Yes.
And like just being generally weird. He shows up at Sarah Kinney's bedroom, like her quarters.
Right, like on the campus or wherever they're working. Yeah.
And is like, I don't really understand how he convinces her, but he's like, okay, fine, I guess we're going to do this girl Wolverine, but we need to have a woman to be a surrogate
Right.
for the fetus. And I guess for some reason you can't find someone or someone who's appropriate or whatever.
He's just
the
like
point
trying
is,
to punish her.
he's trying to
basically.
punish her, and he punishes her, Nick, by forcing her to carry a baby.
Yes.
This is a form of rape.
Yeah, it's a dark story.
This is the kind of thing people. This is a storyline. Forcing women to carry a baby is a storyline that pops up sometimes. They did it in the X-Files. They're doing it here. It feels like something that male writers do not understand how bad it is, I guess. It just feels like this, and then she's a woman, so she'll have to carry the baby.
Yeah.
And it's just a lot more traumatizing and like invasive, and it has when you read something like that as a woman, I think that it comes across way darker than the writers probably intended.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, until you stated it in that way, I thought, ooh, that's icky.
Yeah.
But I didn't really think about it like from that standpoint. And I mean, I see your point.
Which
Obviously,
I think is a really interesting, it's an interesting thing just to kind of think about.
Yeah.
Because then I have to figure out how dark did they mean it to be.
Right.
You know?
Honestly, probably not that dark. You know, like I don't think they intended to go in that direction. I think it was just like punish her and give her a reason to feel protective and whatever, you know, supportive of
Which is
Laura.
a little sexist and lazy, because there's plenty of ways to work it out. That like she spends so much time with her, and she develops these maternal feelings or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, they do it with the sensei, because Laura, X-23.
So eventually she's born, and we
have some time lapse where like 5 years later.
I think it's 7, but
whatever. She's like a kid, but she's been raised with no affection, and you know they're not supposed to make eye contact and like all these kinds of things.
Yeah, you know, which is interesting to me, because I don't know if you've read much of over in the world of DC. Are we allowed to talk about DC on previously on X-Men? The Cassandra Cain version of Batgirl has kind of a similar, I mean, not like in a crazy lab, but raised by assassins and everything. Her whole thing is she's kept from having like a verbal language and everything, so that she is all like pure instincts and like pure assassin. And there's a lot of things here that I feel like is connection, and obviously Cassandra Cain predates this by quite a bit. So I think it's another theme that fascinates writers, the idea of what happens if you raise a child like this, and just to see like how much of humanity remains and all of that. I think that's a popular theme. So as time is passing, you see that for the most part, people are towing the line. They're treating her like a weapon. She's not a person. Right.
But there are a few people, like there's a sensei who is teaching her, I don't even know, some martial art.
Yeah, I don't know if they get into it, but yeah.
And he sort of sneaks some like kindness in by speaking Japanese to her.
Yeah.
And is being more like a real teacher and not just, you know, like communicating with her kindly. And also Dr. Kinney, who they keep around, I guess just because she's connected to Laura.
They don't really go into detail about why they explain that, other than she's kind of like the way in, like you said.
And this is another thing that really sucks about about having her carry the pregnancy, because she came in because she was brilliant and could do something that they couldn't.
Right.
And then she's just immediately sidelined as the mom. And that's just it for the rest of the story.
Yes. I mean, she is being victimized, and that is like a part of the narrative. So like there is at least some level to which they're aware of that, though. I mean, Xander
there's a level to which,
yeah.
But I don't think that there's ever really anything in there that's like, and I didn't get to do my work anymore, and I didn't, you know, they took my research and like ran with it, and I didn't get to have ownership. Or
I guess, you know, maybe I'm just filling in gaps, but I felt a little bit like she was essentially being held hostage because like, if she wanted any connection to Laura, she had to play ball. Like that's kind of what I thought was happening.
I guess, but then that's another thing. That's like, why do you assume she wants connection with Laura?
You're right. Yeah.
Because you used her as an incubator.
Right.
Like that's how you treated it. She couldn't like have a relationship with.
True.
So like maybe why assume that she even cares?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's all sorts of problematic.
It is.
But be that as it may, it continues.
Yes.
So she continues to age. Xander kind of continues to rise as this villain character who's constantly like, he figures out what the sensei is doing, puts the kibosh on that.
Yeah.
He keeps a close eye on whenever Dr. Kinney is interacting with Laura. Dr. Kinney is like reading her stories and stuff.
Yeah.
I guess she's sort of pretending to read to her from the Art of War, but
she's
it's actually a little
classic,
like a kid
comic book in the giant. Yeah.
So she's trying to sort of secretly parent, I guess.
But let's talk about how he dispatches with the sensei, because I think that's a pretty dark turn
as
well.
Yeah, and it's an important plot point.
Yes.
Because something that they have been working with X-23 as they are training her to be a weapon is they have trained into her a trigger scent.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yes.
That when she smells this very specific scent, she goes into what looks like Wolverine's berserker thing.
Right. She just goes for it. Yeah. And they put it on the sensei before a certain thing, so when they get close, she loses it and kills the sensei. And doesn't have any capabilities to deal with that. A crucial part of that too is that Sarah Kinney does not know about this. They've purposely kept this from Sarah.
Yes.
She doesn't know.
Yes, Dr. Kinney doesn't know. And also, once Laura is finished with her rage, she sees what she's done.
Right.
And regrets it. Right. And like, she likes the sensei. She's sad.
Yeah.
So she not only loses him, but then she has this trauma of having killed him.
Right.
Unintentionally.
Yeah.
And violently.
Yes.
So anyway, all of this continues to happen with Xander just sticking his little needles in hurting people. Oh, there's one point too where they want to do the adamantium skeleton thing.
Yes.
But they can't because they have to wait until she reaches adolescence and her mutant ability kicks in.
Right.
But Xander's like, screw that. And he wants to cause her mutation to take effect sooner by traumatizing her physically. Mm-hmm. And so he does this thing with some machinery that causes her all kinds of pain. Yeah. And then there's another time when she's still not ready for the skeleton, but he wants her to have the claws at least. And so they're going to do the surgery to put in the claws.
Yeah. Well, to bond the adamantium to her claws.
Right. Yes. But he's not going to use
anesthetic or whatever. Anesthesia,
whatever. He's not, so he's just going to like be cutting open her hands.
I thought, I mean, as we talk about it, I see a lot more weaknesses that I didn't see before, but I felt like Xander in this is kind of a weakness because he is just so one-dimensionally villainous. And I guess we're meant to believe that he just has this big, deep, dark vendetta against Wolverine and against Weapon X because that's how his father was killed. Yeah. But it just, it's cartoonishly villainous.
It is cartoonishly villainous.
To the max.
And
the Marvel max.
And, like, as far as we know, he hasn't had a particularly traumatizing childhood that would, like, lead to something like this. No. Like, because he was basically adopted by Martin, who's in charge of the facility. And he's, like, ethically questionable, but he doesn't seem to be, like, a vicious person.
No.
So
no, but that's just another angle to it because yes, he was adopted by Martin, so he's having a long-term affair with his surrogate mother,
Ew.
like with his stepmother.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, and then like the child they have is really Xander's, not Martin's, and Martin doesn't know that, and that's like this whole thing in the background. So like
they think he's his brother, but he's his son.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Why does this always happen, Hilary?
This is a character that was created for X-Men Evolution.
That's right.
For tweens.
That's right.
Anyway.
Yikes.
See, this is another example because, like, this particular thing with the kid and with the affairs and stuff, I don't know that the writers really realized how sordid that was when they were writing it.
Yeah.
Because, like, all we see is an employee having an affair with the boss's wife.
Right. And until you get into it.
And that's sort of how it plays out, like, in the plot.
Yeah.
But when you really think about it, it's like, well, that's quite a lot.
There's a little bit of precedence for this kind of thing with Nightcrawler and his whole, like, sister lover situation.
That's
so,
true.
It's not completely new territory here for the X universe.
No. All right. Well, anyway, where were we? Gull. Okay, so he's doing all kinds of physically traumatic things to X-23.
And we get the claws, and we get the adamantium claws. She's got 2 in each hand and 1 in each foot.
Yes.
So I guess she can climb trees really well.
Yeah, she's a little lemur. Little tree lemur.
That should have been her code name.
Yeah.
Aww. They grow up so fast.
Spider monkey.
Yeah.
So now she's a teenager, I'm going to say.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe 10. I feel like maybe she's like 10.
Time is all questionable, and nobody changes appearance at all except for X-23, so.
That's true. Okay, so now she's like 10-ish, whatever, maybe early teens, and they have started sending her into the field as an assassin.
Yes, she's got a little watch that's like, you got 22 minutes, you got to do this.
Yes. And we see a couple of instances of her going and like killing an ambassador. It's always these really high profile targets.
Yeah, they're making a portfolio essentially. They want to be like, hey, remember when that political candidate was assassinated? Well,
that was us.
That was our work.
Yeah, and so you start to sort of see what the whole purpose is, which is to rent her out.
Right.
To the highest bidder.
Yeah.
As an assassin.
Meanwhile, like in Dr. Kinney's life, she has this like weird estranged relationship with her sister. And the sister is really like, I want to talk to you. Look at your niece. Like there's this whole
because
thing.
They're estranged because it's heavily suggested, though not expressly stated, that Dr. Kinney, when she was a child, was sexually molested by her father.
Jeez.
I don't fully know why that's relevant.
I'm not sure either.
It feels like it's put in there for characterization.
Yeah.
Maybe to show why she's so cold to begin with.
I guess.
When she's creating X-23.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But that's why she's estranged from her sister, because her sister lied. Because there's this whole thing. This is so much more complicated.
It is. It's a whole thing.
So Dr. Kinney, when she was a child, apparently called the police.
Yeah.
And was like, I'm being abused.
Yeah.
And then the police came, and they were all like, so weird. Like, why? I don't know who said that. It was anonymous.
Yeah.
And like, nope, nothing's going on. And all the family, including Dr. Kinney, Sarah, and her sister, everybody just covered it up.
Yeah.
So now she has this estranged relationship with her sister, even though her father has died now. Wow,
right.
This is 6 issues.
I know. It's a lot. There's a lot in there.
Her father has died, estranged with her sister, but her sister has a daughter.
Yes.
And so now the daughter, Sarah's niece, wants to have a relationship with Sarah.
Yeah.
This feels like it should have a lot of like parallelism with her relationship with Laura.
With what could have happened.
They don't really go there.
They don't. No.
I don't really know where they go. I don't know why this is a part of it.
I think it just becomes super relevant because Dr. Kinney needs a personal reason to use Laura's skills. I think that's why we have this.
That's right.
Because eventually what happens is Dr. Kinney gets this frantic call from her sister being like, my daughter's been kidnapped. Oh, you have to help me. Oh, this is terrible. And so Sarah breaks out Laura and takes her there and is like, all right, this is your cousin's room. Figure out what happened and go save her. And so it turns out that Megan has been kidnapped by like a serial like child murderer. And Laura goes and rescues her and then like brings her home. And it's like this kind of happy, joyous thing.
Yes. But it's also, I mean, as we have the narration from Sarah after the fact, you have a lot of conflict inside of her because she's been upset about how they're all just using Laura.
Right.
And then when it comes that she needs it, she's like, I just did it too.
Yep.
I just used you.
Yep.
Just like everybody else.
Yep.
Didn't even hesitate. Mm-hmm. So there's a little bit of that in there too. Martin is not pleased that she took Laura out for her own purposes. Yeah. Fires her.
Yes.
Around this same time, Xander manipulates Martin into signing over all of his responsibilities to the company. Mm-hmm. He's like, you just rest. You're old now, I guess. And even though he looks exactly the same.
Exactly.
Old now. So just sign it over. I'll take care of all of that stuff and you just be happy. Mm-hmm. So he does.
Right.
And then pretty immediately, like next frame maybe, Xander goes to X-23 and is like, next assignment. And so she goes to Martin's house where it's him and his wife and their kid.
Right.
And she's supposed to kill everybody.
And he's very specific, like this one can't look like a murder. It has to look like an accidental fire. Mm-hmm. You got to go and you got to make this happen.
Yes. And so she does.
Yes.
She kills Martin and his wife.
Yes.
And you see her kind of looming over the kid, but you don't really know what happens for a second.
I thought this was kind of interesting. The kid is hiding in there with the Spider-Man doll. And she goes and finds the kid and she cuts off the head of the Spider-Man doll. And I feel like that was kind of a way for her to complete her programming.
That's interesting.
You know?
Yeah.
And then you don't really, it's ambiguous for a minute there that you don't know what happened.
Yeah. And so then as soon as Xander feels that this has been done, he goes to the rest of the company and is like, this tragic thing has happened, but don't worry, I will take care of the company.
That's right. We're making X's 24 through 50.
Yeah, we're going to just plow right ahead. He tells Sarah, he goes to Sarah's apartment again as she's leaving, and he touches her shoulder and talks to her about how she's out. She leaves. So a bunch of stuff happens now. We find out that the son was not killed.
He was found like disoriented in the woods afterwards.
Yeah, so she must have, because she burned the house, but she took him out so that he wouldn't die.
So it's kind of showing that there's a little bit of humanity that's seeping through. Like this is one of the few instances where she is kind of clearly made. This is the first time she's broken the programming, or found a way around the programming.
Yeah. And we've seen little tiny hints here and there just when people are being kind to her.
Right. She responds.
Vaguely responsive, but you can't really tell. Yep. So before Sarah leaves, she sets X-23 loose and is like, here, you have one last job.
Yeah.
And it's to kill Xander and destroy all of the
other experimental.
Like the fetuses or whatever, so that they don't get loosed into the world.
Yep.
So Sarah, Dr. Kinney, is waiting outside the facility while X-23 does this, and then they're going to meet and go live their life. And she has sort of this whole plan where they're going to go and be a family, and it's all this cute, beautiful ideas that are going to happen. However, after X-23 kills Xander and all of the pods, she leaves and is like, yay, I'm going to have a life. But when Xander touched Dr. Kinney's arm early on, he apparently put the scent on her. And so Laura goes nuts and kills her.
Right.
But she's not quite dead. When Laura kind of snaps out of it, she has done this thing and she is dying. She's just going to die, but she's still conscious. And she's like, it's okay, I love you, whatever.
Your name is Laura.
Yeah. And she dies. So she killed her surrogate mother. And
I think, didn't Sarah actually use some of her own genetic makeup as well as carrying her?
I don't remember. It's possible.
I feel like that's kind of in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, she does. But we see that she's given her the letter. So kind of like what we've been reading this whole time that explains everything.
The whole narrative is in this letter. The whole
narrative is the letter. And then we also see some pictures and information about Wolverine and Professor X and like how to get to them and everything. So you're left with a little bit of like, and now Laura shall find her own path.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's the end.
That's it.
That's that 6-issue run.
Yeah, which full. It's full and it's
packed.
Heavy. Look, you brought up a lot of things that kind of weaken it, but I still feel like what I said in the beginning is true. I think this is one of the more successful origin stories for a character that I've read because it really sets up motivations and explains a character, I think, really well.
Yeah, and it's very concise. I liked it. I enjoyed reading it.
Yeah, I did too.
It's just those little things that kind of stick in my craw.
True.
And I enjoy bringing them up.
Yes.
Well, I think it's important to kind of think about those things because it is so much a part. Those kinds of narratives are so naturally inserted into literature.
Yeah.
In a way that nobody thinks about. And I think it's important to think about those things, to know that women have feelings. Sure. And also to kind of strengthen your ability to come up with new narratives and to use a narrative like that more appropriately.
Yeah.
Because if you really understand the impact and the trauma and all that stuff, you can use that narrative to tell a very dark story.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, even just going into a little bit more of like Sarah Kinney's experiences, like bringing in some of the things you mentioned, like would have just added richness to the story.
Right.
And I think we have sort of archetypes. She's not a damsel necessarily, but she is kind of cast as that.
She takes the role of that, which is extra violating.
Yeah.
Because she's introduced as such a capable...
She's the ringer. She's the one who's like, nobody's smart enough, so we got to bring her in.
So it ends up feeling like nobody's safe.
Right.
Even if you are hired by a couple of men to do this incredibly specialized scientific work, in the end, you will still be victimized and reduced to a mother role.
Yeah. Yeah, and just as we keep saying about Xander, like he is such a, and I know like that character has history outside of this and everything, so I know there's more, but like as presented here, it just feels very much like he is just villain for villain's sake. I don't think enough is given to like what his motivations are. So like those are definite weaknesses, but I think like I don't know if it's like if somebody's like, what's X-23 about? I don't know that I would say read this. Like you might be better off reading, a more complete like.
Well, I think that the thing that would stop you from using this as an on-ramp is that it's not really about Laura.
No, like the post-credit scene I feel like is about Laura and everything else is like how we got here.
Yeah, like you don't see any character anything from her. She's just basically a prop.
Right.
Which is fine. I mean, I think that's what the story is happening. Yeah. But yeah, you don't really get to know her as a character.
Right. But a character that you've read somewhere else and like want to know like what's all this about?
Where'd she come from?
I think this does a successful job of explaining that.
Yeah, it's good.
It still kind of blows my mind to think about her coming from X-Men Evolution, because Eric's made the point before where X-23 is kind of like Marvel's equivalent of Harley Quinn in the DC world, because she was introduced as just sort of like a one-off side character in Batman the Animated Series. And, Harley Quinn has moved on to become like the most central DC character for whatever reason. I guess so. Like Laura's not to that level, but she is definitely a heavy hitter. So it's interesting. You just never know like what character is going to take off and which isn't. So
that's true.
I think if you haven't read All New Wolverine, I think you would enjoy it. Yeah. Like the pairing of her and Gambit works really well.
That sounds fun. She and Gambit show up together for a little bit in the Marjorie Liu
okay. All right.
run. I'm going to keep going with that. I'm really enjoying that and kind of getting to know her there and stuff.
So, she's a cool character. And the Snicks is just a good time. So
I'll have to look at that.
Yeah, I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it.
Jonathan will be my favorite character in the X-Men universe.
That is true. Jonathan, the actual Wolverine.
The actual live Wolverine. Okay, well, thanks for chatting with me about this miniseries.
Absolutely.
It was a fun time.
Yes. It was a time. It was a time. We both learned something.
Yes. Okay, sure. Next time, we're going to be back into the animated series with Eric. We'll be talking about Juggernaut Returns and Deal with the Devil.
All right. I'm going to tune in.
Good. See that you do. Thank you to Prophetic Music for our theme song. Previously on X-Men is brought to you by the Radio Meanwhile Network. Other shows on the network include 90s Music Got Me Like, This Endurian Life, and my favorite, 9021 Here We Go.
Woohoo!
Follow us on Facebook or Twitter at Previously on X. Please rate, subscribe, or share this show wherever you get your podcasts. Bye.
Bye.